Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and today we continue our journey through the NFC side of things with the draft grades, and we find ourselves in the NFC North, where there's a lot of exciting things going on in the North, a lot of movement, and a lot of exciting young teams who have their quarterbacks of the future. We will be going through the 4 teams and their draft classes, where they will grade out in one of the categories and tiers on the left side of the screen. On the right side of the screen, you will see what the color codes equal for each individual pick. Gold being an amazing pick, green being picks that I liked, white being neutral, red being picks I didn't like, and gray, which is very rare but a disastrous draft pick. And on top of that, they will also be graded not just amongst their division, but it will show where they rank overall in the NFL. So without further ado, let's get into it with our first team that we'll be covering today. Let's start things off with the number 4 class in the division and the number 29 class overall. It is the Green Bay Packers, who had a very odd draft, to say the least, as I did talk about when reviewing the AFC South, that when I was talking about the Jaguars, that there are 2 teams that just don't seem to really understand what day 3 is all about. And well, I said the Jaguars were one of the teams and the Packers were the other team, as they have made a lot of questionable day 3 picks over the years. And again, I don't know what they were really doing in day 3, but we'll get into that in a second. We start at the top with Jordan Morgan, who I actually do like Jordan Morgan a decent bit. I had a round 1 to 2 grade on him, which is a tad bit higher overall than what other people had, because I had him top 30 on my board. Now, a lot of people are like, that's a bit of a reach, but sure, I think it's a very fine pick overall, because you obviously need a tackle to replace Bakhtiari, but you did reach a tad bit. I'm not really concerned with the reach. I think Jordan Morgan's a very solid player for this team, and I think goes into a situation where he's going to start day 1. It's going to be a perfectly good spot for him. Him and Zach Tom being the 2 tackles for the future sound like a very decent duo. So the offensive line seems like everything's going in an upward trajectory after the whole Bakhtiari situation. Then you go in the 2nd round, take Edgerrin Cooper, who again, I'm really just indifferent about this pick, as I think it's a nice player at a position of need, because this pick is basically a makeup for the disaster that was the Quay Walker pick, who I still don't understand why they thought Quay Walker in the 1st round was a good idea. I would imagine that Cooper's going to come in and very quickly take over the role that he was supposed to have. But I think it's a nice pick, fills a position in need, and again, not thrilled, but also not disappointed by the pick. It's just a perfectly fine pick, as the Packers just kind of love to do this in the early rounds. You know, you take your defense, you take your offensive line, and then, you know, you figure the rest out later, as they go at safety in the 2nd round, as they had 2 2nd-round picks due to the Aaron Rodgers trade. They get Javon Bullard, which is, again, just a really fine pick. I mean, they went out and they signed Xavier McKinney, who is a really nice signing. I think that's a massive signing that maybe isn't being talked about enough for how good it is for that defense. I think there's a very good chance that you're seeing a starting safety duo next year of Xavier McKinney and Javon Bullard. So I can say, to the Packers' credit, their first 3 picks are all potentially day 1 starters. And for that, if I were to like cluster them all up, I'd say like those top 3 picks, like that's a pretty middle of the pack solid draft. But then everything else comes in, and that's kind of where I have the issue and where the Packers rank so low. So Marshawn Lloyd was a very, I guess, divisive prospect. I've seen people have him as running back 1. I've seen people have him barely in the top 10. For me, he was a top 10 running back, but for me also, he's literally like a DeAndre Swift clone, which some of you are going to hear that and say, wow, that's a great pick, and some of you are going to be like, oh boy, the vision on that's going to be rough. And for people who really just kind of understand what last year was and why DeAndre Swift was let go from the Eagles, let go from the Lions, went to the Bears on not some crazy contract, DeAndre Swift will put up good yards per carry, will put up nice stats, especially behind the Eagles offensive line, but man, he is abysmal with his vision. And Marshawn Lloyd, I think, is just, while he's going to be the number 2 running back because A.J. Dillon's not very good, he's also going to be a potentially frustrating player. So I don't know if the Packers will ever escape a frustrating backup running back, but there you go. You're going from A.J. Dillon to Marshawn Lloyd, so have fun, I guess. Still to this point, though, I think everything's been pretty solid, pretty adequate. And then you get to everything else, and they go Tyron Hopper in the 3rd round, which is just a crazy reach. I don't really know why you're going Tyron Hopper in the 3rd round, but I guess so. I understand that they do need linebacker help, and taking Edgerrin Cooper does help. I don't think Tyron Hopper really helps much at all. I don't really foresee him doing all that much impactfully. He's, I guess, just going to be a special team player, sure. I don't know why you're taking a special team player, and this is something teams do like to do sometimes, is when there isn't someone they love on the board, they just go and kind of throw their pick starting in the 3rd round and on. They just kind of throw their picks at special teamers, and I just don't understand why you're using a 3rd or a 4th round pick on a special teamer. I really will ding a team for that. 3rd and 4th round, you can get real valuable players. And back to back, they go Tyron Hopper and Evan Williams, who are just pure special teamers. I don't understand what the logic is in drafting special teamers that early in the draft, because you can get those guys much later, and you can get those guys in free agency. You do not have to spend premium assets for guys that are only going to play a handful of snaps every game, rather than having a guy who can come in and be a rotational safety, a rotational linebacker. Hopper and Williams are not guys who are going to be playing on defense all that much. And then another thing that the Packers do is they like taking players in day 3 who just aren't really on teams' radars, like Evan Williams, and, their 5th and 6th round. I can't really say that there was too much I knew about these players going in, but I do want to talk about their 7th round, because it's definitely an eventful 7th round, because where I think they did do a good job is drafting Michael Pratt. Michael Pratt, I think that's an absolutely amazing value. The best value pick of the draft, where Pratt is a guy who probably could have went 4th round pretty easily. I don't see why a team wouldn't have taken him in the 4th or 5th round, especially with how prevalent backup quarterbacks are in the NFL with what happened last year. Taking a guy like Michael Pratt to be this high floor backup, I think is a very, very good pick, and I think he's going to have zero problems beating out their day 3 pick last year, who was another puzzling pick in Sean Clifford. Michael Pratt's going to easily cruise to being the number 2 quarterback on the team, so getting that in the 7th round, really good job. And then I don't want to read a 7th round pick, but man, Kalen King is awful. With all due respect to Kalen King, this is a dude who people had in the 1st round going into the season as a potential year in advance mock draft. Kalen King's going to be a 1st round dude, and he almost goes undrafted, and man, he was rough to watch. So I'm not going to ding them for a 7th round pick. This is really, picking Kalen King in the 7th doesn't factor into their grade, but for all the hype that he had going into the season and what he turned out to be, man, it's a real fall for him, and I don't anticipate him being all that impactful for them, but I don't even know if he'll make the roster. So overall, the Packers had a very odd draft. Picks 1 through 3 were fine, and I can say that those 3 players will see significant playing time, but everywhere else I can say it just wasn't something I was a fan of. And even of those top 3 players that they took, they're all going to see significant playing time early on and be solid contributors, but I don't know if any of them will be amazing players. They all just seem like really solid starting potential players for me, but nothing over the top amazing. Up next at number 3, and just barely edging out the Packers at number 28 overall, we have the Minnesota Vikings, who have a draft class that basically entirely hinges on the success of J.J. McCarthy. And what I will say is I do come out of this draft saying I think the Vikings got their franchise quarterback. I think J.J. McCarthy will be good. But I can also say, coming out of this, if J.J. McCarthy is not good, it's not just a typical, oh, you messed up, you took the wrong quarterback. It is the moves that they made to get to this point, to have this draft class, that I say, man, you might be screwed if he is not good, because I want to go right to the red in Dallas Turner. And for me, I will say my grade of this pick isn't solely just the pick itself, it's the trade that it took to get here. Now, It's interesting because the Vikings went out and made a big trade before the draft even started to get the number 23 pick, because they anticipated that there's a good chance that they're going to have to trade 23, package that with number 11, which they had, and move up to take JJ McCarthy. And they were trying to even move up as high as to take Drake May, but that didn't happen. But a lot of people were anticipating, 11 and 23 to the Chargers to move up to 5 to take JJ McCarthy. As the draft went on, I'm like, man, the Vikings are winning big right now. The Vikings only had to move up one spot to get JJ McCarthy. And for that, that's also a big reason why you get a big green for the JJ McCarthy pick, because you didn't have to give up what you thought you had to give up. But then I guess the Vikings thought that they were like, hey, we're playing with house money, I guess. Let's just not care, and let's throw all of the depth of like our next 2 draft classes at, somebody, and let's go get Dallas Turner. And I'm like, man, you really could have got JJ McCarthy, kept all these draft picks, picked someone at 23, and you would have had, plenty of depth over the next couple of years with your draft to continue to build a roster around him. I don't really understand the thought process of giving all of that up to move up 6 spots to take Dallas Turner, because I think there were still quality players you could have taken at 23. And also, I'm just not as big on Dallas Turner, so I guess that's more of a personal thing for me. Not being as big of a Dallas Turner guy. When breaking down the Colts draft, and I talked about Latu, I said that Latu has more pass rush moves now than Dallas Turner will ever learn, and I genuinely believe that. As a straight up pure edge rusher, I don't see it in Dallas Turner. And I know a lot of people are going to be quick to make the Danielle Hunter comparisons. And while I get it for the athleticism, Danielle Hunter was able to develop pass rush moves and be a bit more of an effective person off the edge in pass rushing situations, and it's not going to be like that for Dallas Turner, I believe. I think a more accurate comparison for a guy like Dallas Turner is actually Trayvon Walker, because the thing with Trayvon Walker is he was drafted based off all of these athletic tools, and he turned out to not be a good pass rusher really much at all. But he was a good run defender and a surprisingly good cover player. And Dallas Turner can cover a little bit, and I think that that's, a bit overlooked, because obviously you don't draft an edge to cover, but I think Dallas Turner, if you line him out and just say, rush the passer from the edge, I don't think you're going to be happy with this pick. But if you move Dallas Turner around, play him in the middle, play him on the edge, move him around, use him, I won't say like Micah Parsons, obviously, but use him like how the Panthers used like Frankie Louvu, who, parlayed that into 8 sacks, solid in coverage, got a contract in Washington. I think if you use him more like a Frankie Louvu type or a Trayvon Walker type, that's going to be more where his value is going to be. But if you are expecting Dallas Turner to be Danielle Hunter 2.0 or be that level of production for sacks, I think you're going to be disappointed. And that's where I'm disappointed with the trade. If they would have just stayed at 23 and were able to take him, I wouldn't be down on the pick, but it's because they went out and gave up a decent amount of assets to move up and get him is where I ding the pick. So they had an eventful day 1 for sure, but because of all the stuff that they gave up, not just in this year, but next year, year after, they gave up a lot of stuff in these upcoming draft classes that the rest of their draft was really uneventful. They go and take, kind of a draft darling player for, Twitter and everything. They took Kyrie Jackson, who a lot of people, really began to like. For me, Kyrie Jackson was a top 20 corner, but didn't crack the top 15. And while I think there is some upside, and I do think he went to a scheme that's good for him with Brian Flores, because I love what Flores has done with the defense, I think Jackson, he went for me an adequate value. I had a 3rd to 4th round grade on him just about. So I'm not going to say great value. I think it's just a fine pick, and I think definitely the best pick they made outside of the 1st round. But the rest, there isn't much to talk about. They went kicker, tackle, center, D-tackle, 6th and 7th round. I am concerned that this team did gut the depth of their draft classes in the coming years, including this year, to go and get Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner needs to turn out to be an awesome player for it to feel worth it, and you're going to really need JJ McCarthy to be, your franchise quarterback, obviously, but you're not going to be able to bring in a bunch of cheap rookies in day 2 and day 3, not nearly as much as you would have been able to if you didn't make the trade. So you're going to really have to hope that you can lock down, guys like Justin Jefferson. You can draft well with what picks you do have and get some really nice contracts. I'm optimistic because I do think JJ McCarthy will be the future and will be the franchise quarterback for the team. So I guess in a sense, if JJ McCarthy is everything I think he can be, then this draft class is better than the 28th best, because if you get the quarterback right, then nothing else matters. Especially, you'll happily fail the Dallas Turner pick to succeed the JJ McCarthy pick. So I guess maybe in that regard, if you think I'm too harsh on the draft class, then I guess fair for the quarterback value, but I'm grading it based on everything they did, not just JJ McCarthy. But like I said, if JJ McCarthy succeeds, this is better than the 28th draft class, even if everything else fails. Now to number 2 in the division, and number 15 overall, we have the Detroit Lions, and I have to say I absolutely love what they have gone out and done this offseason. The Lions had a big issue last year, and while their defense was tough, it was Dan Campbell-like. They were really physical. They had an issue in the secondary, and they went out and made sure that they addressed it in every conceivable way. I loved that they drafted Brian Branch last year. I thought that was an awesome pick, and Kirby Joseph has turned out to be a really nice player for them at safety, but still at corner they were lacking. So they go and trade for Carlton Davis, which I still don't really understand why the Buccaneers would want to get rid of Carlton Davis, but hey, it's the Bucs' loss is the Lions' gain, and that's a great gain to have. And then you go in the first round, you take Terrion Arnold, and I thought that this team was going to stand at 29 and take Kool-Aid McKinstry. That's what I had mocked to them. A lot of people had mocked to them, and it just felt like what the Lions would do. But as the corner started slipping, the Lions saw the opportunity to jump up and get Terrion Arnold. I had Arnold rated slightly ahead of McKinstry, so it's a good move, and we've seen him at draft night have a lot of fun and really already make himself a favorite of the Lions, and not just the Lions, but the entire NFL, with grabbing the mic and really having some fun with the crowd. But I think he's going to be a nice player for them, and we'll see who really emerges as the number 1 corner in that room between Arnold and Davis. I would imagine Davis will start, but won't be surprised if Arnold eventually takes over that role. But if you needed corners, I mean, you got another one too, because you go in the second round, you take Ennis Rakestraw, which I liked Rakestraw as a really just high floor, plug and play type of corner, and for the Lions to go and get him too, and not just get him, but get him almost in the 3rd round. I mean, he almost fell to the 3rd, which is nuts, because I think he is a clear 2nd round type of player that you really could use early on. And I would have given them all the credit if they would have just taken him and someone else in the 1st round, because I think Rakestraw, like I said, you can plug and play him. But now this secondary suddenly has a lot of versatility and a lot of fun. I mean, they have 5 legit guys that are quality players, I feel like. I think Rakestraw is going to be a quality player. Arnold, Davis, Branch, Joseph. And Branch obviously can move from safety to nickel if he needs to. And it's now suddenly a weakness has become a bit of a strength, and I love when a team goes out, attacks a weakness, and makes it a strength, and the Lions did that to perfection this offseason. I also like what the Lions were able to do in day 3, though, as a lot of people did knock them for taking Giovanni Manu in the 4th round, as he was just kind of not really on people's radars and was someone that they had to trade up to get. But I can say, if I'm trusting an organization to turn a 6'8", 350-pound behemoth monster of a man into a nice player for them, I think that this culture and this style of play for the Lions is a great fit for him. So, like the pick, honestly, not like love it because he is a bit of an unknown, but it went to a nice spot for him, and then they go and get Sion Vaki in the 4th round as well, which is another really just fun, interesting player, drafted as a running back. He has listed here as a running back on the depth chart, but he also can play safety, and I don't know how much two-way playing he'll be, but I think at the very least, nice special teamer, could be a nice back for them, or safety because you have the versatility, so we'll see what position he has. So there's some upside there. But where I really think they shined in the day 3 section is the 4th round. Their 4th round was awesome. They go and get Mekhi Wingo in the 6th, which I liked Wingo a decent amount as a rotational backup defensive lineman. And he's going to be in there with a bunch of other guys, including DJ Reader. And I think there's going to be real opportunity for him to be, you know, kind of like a 3rd down pass rush specialist for them as he rotates in and out. And getting that in the 6th round, that's pretty quality snaps you're getting and pretty quality play that you're potentially getting from him. And then in the 6th round after that, almost the 7th, they get Christian Mahogany. Like, that's an awesome pick. And again, another one where I'm like, man, the Lions just draft it right here. Like, it's just so good. And they have Kevin Zeitler as their right guard, Graham Glasnow as their left guard, and I can easily see a situation where at the very least Zeitler kind of just rides out this last year as he's been, you know, hopping from team to team as a veteran. But I think we are looking at a situation where Mahogany as a 6th round pick can definitely play, you know, as a starter in the future as soon as next year. And at the very least, I guess you're getting kind of that 4th man on the interior of your offensive line that, you know, who could play either side on guard and just kind of can fill in. But at the best, I think you're actually getting a potential starting caliber player. I had a 4th round grade on him. So the fact that you're getting him late 6th, awesome value. And really, I just like what the Lions did top to bottom. I think they just had a really solid, filled their needs and got those needs with quality players. I mean, this draft really was about turning a weakness, which was their cornerback room, into a strength. And now I look forward to watching what this Lions secondary can do, and then seeing if Giovanni Manu and Sion Vaki could be fun players for them in the 4th round. And then, I mean, quality backups at the very least, but potentially low-end starters in the 6th round. That's how you do it, really, as the Lions continue to shore up what could potentially be a contending team in the NFC. Well, it really doesn't get much better than this. At number 1 in the division, number 1 overall, we have the Chicago Bears, and I did give them the edge over my number 2 ranked team, the Chargers. I did say in that video that the Chargers had my favorite draft class, but it's hard not to say the best draft class just went to the team that I think, even though they only had 5 picks, nailed every single pick. And not just that, they took Caleb Williams. So, I mean, if I could somehow give a thing higher than gold, I would. I mean, he was obviously the clear number 1 pick, so it's not like crazy value or something, but Caleb Williams is so special. I find it crazy that there's been a lot of people trying to knock Caleb Williams for his personality or whatever the case may be. For me, Caleb Williams is arguably the greatest QB prospect I have ever had the pleasure of looking at, and I think that I definitely am in like the higher end of what I think Caleb is, because I'd say the only prospect ever QB wise that I would even consider taking over Caleb Williams is Andrew Luck. Like, he is 1A, 1B with Andrew Luck for me in terms of generational QB prospects. Like, I think so highly of Caleb Williams, and man, that could really backfire if he's what a lot of people who hate him think he'll be, but I don't think so. I've never been so sure on a player, and I've been a fan of Caleb Williams since he was at Oklahoma, and you know, before he got to USC, I was so hyped when he and Jordan Addison rocked up to USC, and Jordan Addison was my number 1 receiver last year, and he had a great rookie season. Now Caleb Williams, generational quarterback, and I think literally just walking into the building, the best quarterback that the Bears have ever had. Like seriously, the Bears QB history is abysmal, and man, they had to wait a long time, but I think you got the right one. You got the best QB prospect you could possibly get, and Bears fans should just be so happy. And I find it crazy, by the way, that there were Bears fans who thought they should keep Justin Fields. I don't really get that train of thought, but yeah, you got your quarterback for the next however many years, as long as I guess you keep him happy and build a team around him. But I think the Bears did a good job of that, not just, you know, in the past year, because I think they've made some really nice moves outside of the draft as well. which I love the Montez Sweat trade, bringing him in, paying him. Sweat's been an amazing player. They go and get Keenan Allen for a nice deal. I mean, they got DJ Moore in the trade last year, which is a great move. Thought they drafted some nice players, and now this year, I mean, you somehow also were able to snag Rome Odunze at number 9 overall, and you can thank the Falcons for being, you know, a interesting organization by turning down every trade offer that they got to move for someone to jump up and take Rome Odunze over you, and they drafted Michael Penix. So you got handed Rome Odunze at 9, and it's like, wow, you look at that receiving core. You got DJ Moore, who's potentially like a top 15 receiver. You got, you know, Keenan Allen, who had arguably like his best season last year. Like, I don't think people really talk about that. Like, I know production-wise, maybe it's not his most prolific season, but in terms of, like, good play, like, Keenan Allen was awesome last year, and I don't know if he's going to play to that level this year, but he's top, whatever, 20 receiver potentially, and then you're getting Rome Odunze, who has all the potential to be a top 20, 15 receiver in the NFL. It's like, if Rome Odunze can hit what his ceiling is quickly, and Keenan Allen doesn't fall off quickly, are you looking at a team that has like 3 top 20, 3 top 25 receivers in the league? Like, that is an unbelievable receiving core, and Cole Kmet's a solid tight end. I'm not a big DeAndre Swift fan, but I mean, I guess he's there, and I love Roschon Johnson. I hope he gets some nice playing time. That's a dangerous offense, and that's their first 2 picks. I mean, perfect decisions made there. And then you go in the 3rd round, get Kieran Amagaji, and it's a nice pick too. I mean, a lot of people do, I think, overstate the need of a tackle for the Bears. They drafted Darnell Wright in the 1st round last year, who's a pretty nice player in his rookie season. But people, for some reason, think that the Bears, like, really need a tackle. And, like, I seen, like, the Bears should take, like, Olu at 9, or they have them mock taking a tackle in the 1st round, like, in future drafts and everything. It's like, man, the Bears don't need a tackle that much. Like, Braxton Jones is a pretty solid player. And for the people who really want to tackle, well, here you go. You got Amagaji, who's going to sit and have time to develop, as he's a bit more of a project player. Came from Yale, so his degree of competition is certainly taking a jump up. So he's not going to be able to play early on, I don't think. But if for whatever reason Darnell Wright or Braxton Jones isn't a quality starting tackle, Amagaji can develop into that. So more than a good use of a 3rd round pick. And I know some people may be curious to see the green on a punter in the 4th round, and I wouldn't normally do this. I wouldn't normally green a punter or a kicker being drafted, let alone in the 4th round, but you know, there's a special circumstance here, and that is that Tory Taylor isn't just a regular punter. I mean, if we really want to, like, you know, kind of joke a little bit, but, like, not really joke, I mean, I could sit here and say that the Bears got themselves 2 generational players in this draft class, and I ain't talking about Rome Odunze, because Tory Taylor is the best punter prospect I have ever seen in my life. He is unbelievable. He made somehow Iowa like a double-digit win team. That Iowa team is abysmal. That team had one of the worst offenses I have ever seen in modern college football history, and he won them games. Like, genuinely, a punter was their MVP last year, and he was the most entertaining part of that team, too. And I love that Caleb Williams immediately goes out and says, well, you're not going to be needing to punt very much, and that might be true, but whenever the Bears need to punt, I mean, Tory Taylor is going to be an absolute weapon who puts them in bad field position, of course, and that's your punter for the next decade. And I don't just say, like, oh, they got a punter for a long-term starter. You're getting an all-pro level punter here in Tory Taylor. Respect the punters. And then finally, you get Austin Booker in the 5th round, and that's another awesome value pick. As Austin Booker, I had as a top 10 edge rusher and a 3rd to 4th round talent for me. And Booker was a player that I wouldn't have been mad if a team took a swing at late in the 3rd. I think he's got great upside. And this is a team that did need edge rush help, because while they did go out and trade for Montez Sweat, the other edge rush spot is very wide open for competition. And while I do think Austin Booker is a more long-term piece, I think he's going to get an opportunity to play a little bit of snaps early, and we'll see how quick he can develop. But I think he has all the potential to be better than everyone that they have on the roster for edge rush not named Montez Sweat. So if they land this pick and hit on this one, they're getting a starting edge rusher, a number 2 complimentary piece to Montez Sweat in the 5th round. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that from a late round pick. So to recap, you got yourselves one of the greatest QB prospects ever. You got yourselves an insane receiver prospect. You got yourselves a potential valuable developmental tackle and a developmental edge. And you got yourself an all-pro punter, in my opinion. It's not just the players that they took. Aside from punter, I guess, because while I did say respect the punters, I'm not respecting them quite to the extent as the other positions. 4 of their 5 draft picks went to 4 of the most valuable positions in the NFL. Quarterback, receiver, tackle, edge. You get the quarterback someone to throw to, you protect the quarterback, you attack the other team's quarterback. They knew how to build, and they picked the right players in the right spots. I can't think of any missteps in this Bears draft. Like, the only thing that may be holding it back from getting like a straight 100 is just like, I mean, they only picked 5 players, I guess, and I mean, I guess like it's not the best player they could have humanly took at that position, obviously, but like it's hard for me to knock this draft at all, and it's hard for me to come up with a single negative. And the Bears have now added 5 players on top of the players that they have acquired to the offseason to potentially make this team a really dangerous team in the NFC. An NFC that's been a lot weaker than the AFC for years now. And the NFC's coming, and the Bears are coming. So that will do it for this video. Let me know what you all think. If you think that the Bears had as picture perfect of a draft as I said they did, and how you feel about, you know, teams like the Packers and the Vikings, and what the Lions were able to do as well. So as we continue on, we are 6 divisions done, just 2 to go. And as we get into the NFC West next episode, I will see you all in the next one.